Welcome to this installment of Context Clues, where we provide you with excerpts from previous episodes and new commentary in order to make richer our newest topic at hand. I'm your host, Chelsey Weber-Smith, and this is American Hysteria. Oh, dear listeners, what have I done? Why have I done it? What even is it? Skibidi Toilet, our upcoming topic, is a record-breakingly viral sensation on YouTube. Most popular with the new big dogs in town, Generation Alpha, who are, at their oldest, about 14. But they are already the taste makers of the internet, taking over from Gen Z, whose online humor and admittedly dank memes are aging out of the conversation. Now it's Skibidi Toilet this and Skibidi Toilet that, and oh my god, many if not most of you are probably screaming, and I mean screaming into the black vacuum of your smartphone screen, what in the living, breathing hell is Skibidi Toilet? I encourage you, my friends, to sneak on over to a little YouTube channel called Da Fuck Boom to watch the first few minute-long episodes of Skibidi Toilet so you can get a better idea of what this strange, creepy, chaotic, and, as some call it, stupid series is all about. You can also head to our Instagram at American Hysteria Podcast to find a little collection that we've put together for you of this digitally animated series. It is in these videos that you will find the source of the most popular slang of Gen Alpha, the word that seems to mean nothing and everything all at once, skibidi. If you've never heard the word skibidi, you probably will now, the way you hear a new word one day and suddenly it's everywhere. Some members of Gen Z call the ongoing YouTube series an example of brain rot, evidence that the new generation has been totally ruined by being chronically online. Some of those in generations older than that call Skibidi Toilet potentially dangerous to the impressionable youth. I call it a war-torn, uncanny valley, a modern Dadaist, Hieronymus Boschian hellscape, and something worthy, to me, of a sociological examination. We will be looking at the hottest sensation out there for kids that hit in 2023 and remains just as popular in 2024. A series that may soon be taken over by Hollywood and turned into a massive property akin to a Marvel Universe picture show. I don't want to say much more than this. You'll just have to stay tuned next week to learn all you need to know. But for today, we're going to give you a little bit of stunningly chaotic context from previous episodes to better understand this viral craze called Skibidi Toilet that you've never heard of, or maybe have avoided at all costs. That's right after this. The Skibidi Toilet series has renewed the perennial fear of what kinds of media kids are consuming when their parents aren't around. For anyone unaware of the 2017 panic over the shocking, strange, and deeply unnerving content found on YouTube Kids, I'm here to educate you about one of the yuckiest and most mysterious phenomena ever found on the internet. Of all the topics that we've covered, all of the bizarre, frightening rabbit holes that I have fallen into, sometimes unable to climb back up the muddy, slippery walls, our Elsagate episode made me go utterly out of my skull. I was crazed, consuming the deeply inappropriate and stunningly uncanny videos that had been snuck into the YouTube Kids app, much to the horror of parents who would look over and see their kid watching a character they love, maybe Peppa Pig, maybe Spider-Man, maybe Elsa from Frozen, doing violent, sexual, and downright haunting things, all delivered to them by an algorithm gone out of control. And worst of all, no one ever really figured out who or what was behind these videos. Now, Skibidi Toilet is a series made by one guy, a guy who has given interviews and who is now working with a major studio and director. But his animation style reminds me so much of the style of some of these frightening creations that live in the uncanny valley, the type of content that I can't help but become obsessed with, for better and for worse. But compared to these potentially nefarious YouTube Kids videos from 2017, well, Skibidi Toilet seems tame by comparison. So please enjoy some excerpts from our 2021 episode called Elsagate. YouTube Kids launched in 2015 to the joy of overworked parents everywhere, something they could sit their kids in front of for sacred chunks of time, the way many of us were placed in front of television cartoons, ones regulated by trusted standards of suitability. For the next generation, YouTube Kids and the child-approved channels on YouTube proper promised a safe, clean, and even educational experience. But just 2 short years later, the mainstream media would pick up a story that had been circulating deep in the online forums of Reddit for some time about the strange and disturbing videos lurking just under the surface of the supposedly safeguarded app. By 2017, YouTube would be embroiled in a major scandal, leading them to purge many channels that were pumping out inappropriate content, garnering anywhere from tens of thousands to hundreds of millions of views. The shocking discovery of these truly freaky, uncanny valley videos, ones both animated and acted out by real people, was dubbed #Elsagate because cheap ripoffs of Elsa from Disney's Frozen was one of the most common stars, along with Spider-Man, the Joker, Peppa Pig, Paw Patrol, Mickey and Minnie Mouse, Thomas the Tank Engine, Shrek, and pretty much every other popular character of the last 10 years. The themes of these videos run the gamut of surreal smut, with characters in sexual situations, eating feces, firing off AK-47s, committing suicide, burying each other alive, with child pregnancies and abortions, vampire toilets, decapitation, hypodermic needles, just so many injections, fake wounds crawling with maggots, kidnappings, violent claymation eye surgeries, spiders crawling in mouths and ears, and cartoons peeing into a urinal, and then that pee goes into a faucet on the other side of the stall, and they pour it into a glass and drink the pee. That series is super popular. And if we go deep enough, we get to who else but a computer-animated Adolf Hitler and a gummy version of Donald Trump. What makes this story even more bizarre, even more unnerving, is that no one has yet figured out the people who were making these videos and why.
The common denominator between all of their content seems to be that it's extremely low budget and quickly produced, with ripoffs of mostly Disney and Marvel characters, their titles containing a mashup of popular keywords clearly made to pull in the highest possible number of views. Per my descriptions, these videos might just seem like sick creepypasta-esque pranks, but it doesn't quite feel that way, at least not most of the time. These videos don't really acknowledge these dark moments as anything abnormal. They aren't like gotcha, trolly moments. They're just a part of this aimless, nonsensical, meandering story. The more sober guesses at the heart of this mystery are that these videos are made by groups in India or Russia, or by AI bots, or acted out by real people in order to hack that algorithm by producing what they think is popular content. The more far-reaching interpretations veer easily into our most expansive conspiracy theory, hypnotic, satanic, underground sex rings, or even a global conditioning of small children in order to normalize future abuse on a mass scale. This is one of those episodes that don't really provide a lot of answers. Not only did I have to spend a lot of time on Reddit forums, which I feel scared of, and a lot of time listening to funny YouTube dudes, but I also just incinerated my YouTube algorithm all for you. Researching this episode has been one of the most unnerving experiences of making American hysteria thus far, and longtime listeners will know that that is saying a lot. It's been disturbing not in the way that much of our show talks about the horrors of our real-world history, but in a different, deeper, almost cellular way. A way that put me into a preternatural waking dream that seemed to be created by an artificial intelligence, one of my biggest fears, thanks to Black Mirror. All I can say is, buckle up, babies. This is a fucking family vacation straight into the uncanny Grand Canyon.
Mickey on a railway picking up stones. Down came an engine and broke Mickey's bones. Mickey, that's not fair. Oh, said the engine driver, I don't care.
When I first wrote about Elsagate back in 2017, I wanted to start off by getting acquainted with what the kids were watching, and that was unnerving enough. The first popular series I came across had racked up billions of views, and it was nothing more than a pair of adult hands slowly unwrapping Kinder eggs and breaking open the chocolate to reveal the toy inside, with absolutely no music to accompany it. The hands then turn the toy around slowly to show the child each angle until putting it aside and opening another Kinder egg. This can last for 45 minutes, an hour and a half. As most parents know, there are hundreds of thousands of videos just like these, with mashup names like 40 Surprise Eggs, Kinder Surprise, Disney, Toy Story, Shrek, Peppa Pig, Thomas, Mickey Mouse, and also New Huge 101 Surprise Egg Opening, Kinder Surprise, Elmo, Disney, Pixar, Cars, Mickey, Minnie Mouse. That's a good one. In other smash hits, cheap animations are made using the same nursery rhyme song again and again in any and every form you can imagine. Probably the most popular of these nursery rhymes is called the Finger Family Song and is accompanied by hand gestures. It's also known as Daddy Finger. Here are some examples.
Daddy Finger, where are you?
Here I am, how do you do?
Mommy Finger, where are
baby finger, where are you? Here I am, how do you do?
No matter what you do, somewhere deep in your consciousness, that song has implanted itself and will never, ever leave you. Anyway, very often these cartoons contain no actual words, just sound effects and gestures that imply what is happening, meaning that any kid in the world can connect to them, which opens up an enormous worldwide market. These videos are fragmented, long and repetitive, nonsensical, often lacking a plot or featuring bizarre interruptions that disorient the viewer, using out-of-key nursery rhymes that have little to do with what's happening in the scene. The characters move in surreal ways due to the terrible animation, and there are cutouts of real photos that are often interspersed. It's almost like it's copied and pasted together from a bunch of other videos. Like suddenly a computer-animated dancing baby will be handing out 5 colored eggs that have human eyes that grow huge and then poorly lip-sync an out-of-key Finger Family song, and then suddenly Shrek's head is on an adult woman's body out of nowhere for no reason and shimmying across the screen. As we know, toddlers are hella weird and are easily mesmerized by repetition and familiar characters and songs, and things like context and plot and dialogue don't really matter to them. But to adults, all this nonsense is totally unnerving. Still, no matter how we feel about it, it would be difficult to classify these children's videos as dangerous. But come 2016, more and more parents started to notice that if their kids sat long enough, letting the autoplay feature do its thing, then they might walk in on a video called Bad Baby Bloody Nose Doc McStuffins Gives Needle, or Spider-Man and Frozen Elsa Ant Attack Swollen Ass Bad, or Mickey Mouse Baby Dead in Gas Explosion. It does happen in this video. A house explodes and then you see Mickey Mouse mourning over the graves of his baby and Minnie. Now, these animated ElsaGate videos are almost identical to the innocent rip-off animations I just described. They usually start with a more normal scene and slowly veer into the bizarre and inappropriate. So it's almost like this nightmare coming true. You're already in this bizarre cartoon world where everything is a little off, a little weird, feels wrong, and then suddenly in walks a poorly computer-animated Spider-Man and Ghostface from Scream, and Elsa and the Hulk, all firing off AK-47s before burying each other alive. Or Peppa Pig will be getting something from the fridge, and then a real-life rubber-gloved hand will enter the frame and inject her with something, or pull out her teeth with pliers because she has a toothache. One commonly cited video showed the Paw Patrol characters in a strip club, and then one of the dogs goes to the doctor and gets an operation in which he replaces the dog legs with long human legs in stilettos. So now you must follow me into one of the most famous ElsaGate channels called Toys in Japan. The first video that they posted came in 2015 and was yet another video of a man's hands playing with children's toys with no dialogue, just the sound of his breathing. Because we live in a constant and unending nightmare, the video took off and Toys in Japan started in on another popular trend, combining the same nursery rhymes with every possible computer-animated character you could imagine, making essentially the same video again and again, like an algorithmic artificial intelligence machine. At its height, This channel was pumping out about 7-hour-long videos every day. The most famous series came when Toys in Japan put out the first of these computer-animated horror stories, 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed.
5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell up and bumped his head. Mama called the doctor. And the doctor said, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. 4 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell up.
To start, it was 5 different colored monkeys jumping on a bed. But eventually, it would become 5 Shreks, or 5 Mickey Mouses, or Waluigis, or PewDiePies, or Hulks, or Minions, or Elsas, or Fortnite block people, or Woody from Toy Story, or Angry Birds, and eventually even Kim Kardashians. The background of this video is just a picture of a bedroom that never changes, and then whatever character it is jumping up and down robotically, but then falls off the bed and basically just turns upside down while still jumping in the same automatic way it had been. Then the scene cuts to a woman we can assume is Mama talking on the phone, but her head is a Shrek head, or a Hulk head, or a Kim Kardashian head, or the head of an angry bird. Then cut to a doctor lady on the other line who's clearly scolding Mama with her arm waving in the air with animation as bad as GoldenEye for N64. This repeats until all 5 characters have fallen off the bed, and then usually it just starts all over again. So, very weird, right? But still, you can't really say that something explicitly bad is happening here. But wait. What do we have here way down buried amongst the innocents? A Toys in Japan video called 5 Little Hitlers Jumping on the Bed, all with different colored hair and matching accents on each Nazi uniform, just jumping up and down while Mama calls the motherfucking doctor. Pretty bad, right? Oh, sweetie, your twinkling childlike innocence is showing. Continue on to their series that takes place in the middle of a vast desert in front of a white tent, with Hitler's head on a bikini-clad woman's body, dancing to the Finger Family song, and then fist-fighting with a skeleton with the worst animation and sound effects you've ever heard for an entire 45 minutes. But there's literally no way it can get any weirder than that, right? Oh, you poor sweet fool. Another oft-repeated scene by Toys in Japan takes place with the background of a simple meadow. In the chaos of one video titled Donald Trump Candy Ride Mickey Mouse Syringe Car Finger Family, a gummy version of Donald Trump rides out on a giant syringe with a Mickey Mouse finger family popping up in the foreground. And then a pink candy T-Rex with Donald Trump's head comes walking out, and an animated hand pops up with Donald Trump's head on the first finger. Daddy finger. And on and on and on and on.
Father finger, where are
Rest now, child. We're through. Toys in Japan was shut down during the Elsagate sweep, but not before the mysterious creator revealed himself in a series of Fortnite live video streams that still gave us very few answers about how and why these videos were made by him. Toys in Japan is either a fantastic, prolific, and maybe I'll just say it, deeply talented troll, or a kind of automated factory of nonsense. It almost seems to be a kind of algorithm all its own, automatically created by pulling popular characters into a template, because they all move exactly the same way. I tried really hard to learn about automated animation, but I'm still really unsure how all of it works, despite literally you guys asking Reddit to explain if it was possible and holding my breath that no one would be mean to me. They were nice, and they answered some of my questions, but I still didn't quite understand. But one thing they made clear was that regardless of how automated these videos may be, someone has to be pulling the strings. It bears knowing, too, that at its height, toys in Japan would have been making up to $200,000 a year. It also bears admitting that there may be another possible financial incentive angle to this content. The kids who are old enough to actually navigate the app might very likely click on the weirdest videos they see, just like I did with the horrifying underbelly of the late 90s World Wide Web. I literally shudder to think. Many people concerned about ElsaGate seem to imply that our sweet and innocent children would never choose to watch these videos themselves, but anyone who's ever worked with them knows that many children would absolutely click on the one that says toilet or butt. I know that I would have clicked on one of these things over another video of Peppa Pig making a new friend or Minnie Mouse baking a pie. So perhaps the intention is to entice kids, entice them into clicking something that stands out to them, something that will really get their attention. But of course, again, this is only a small piece of the puzzle. And we must regrettably look to the trolls who daily shape our reality into a much uglier place than it really is. These videos have got to be made, at least in part, by transgressors who are still fighting for a kind of old prank supremacy. The way that teenagers might have spray-painted pentagrams in the 80s to freak out their town, and the way that people shitpost racist and homophobic content to get a rise out of the libs. Angry people on the internet do bizarre things to satisfy an increasingly gross sense of humor and impress their insufferable internet prank friends. The meta ElsaGate content, the parodies, the pranks, the additional videos to support conspiracy theories are all hard to pick out from the original ones that they're copying. It's hard to sort out the real videos from these memes, and thus, it's hard to piece together the entire mystery. We must also look at the profitable heart, the great and powerful algorithm that exists to predict our ongoing desires and interests, to keep our attention, and thus encourage us to consume both content and goods in what has been called the attention economy. You've got to keep their attention. In order to cash in, companies and creators seem to be trying to monetize our very souls, to find the spark that makes it human and convert it into profit until we can no longer tell the difference, where we end and the computer begins. And with that human spark comes the possibility of monetizing the human shadow as well. Much of the internet is a kind of massive cultural id, a place that we can be completely anonymous, where we can unleash the darkest parts of ourselves with no repercussions. And many people do just that, things they would never do in real life where there is so much more at stake. And so, the collective shadow self is disproportionately represented online, our subconscious creating a bizarre alternate reality that lurks just below the manufactured surface, and it's all gobbled up by our algorithms. And this place, the internet, social media, isn't this, by and large, where we are living now?
I bet a lot of you will remember the super viral moral panic that hit in 2018, an urban legend unfolding in real time, dubbed the Momo Challenge. This was definitely one of the biggest save the children stories of the decade, and one that is totally and completely fabricated beyond belief. If you haven't heard of Skibidi Toilet, then you probably haven't heard of Skibidi Toilet Syndrome, something that concerned parents have been making videos about on TikTok and YouTube, and even talking about in the mainstream media. The moral panic around the dangerous influence of this suicide-inducing chicken person monster, you'll understand in a minute, was much more intense and widespread than the moral panic around Skibidi Toilet. But it does illustrate our propensity for blaming media for the problems of the day. Since our take on this viral urban legend was a little mini episode, we actually have time to play it for you in full. So please enjoy this 2018 episode called The Momo Challenge.
When a 12-year-old girl was stabbed nearly to death by two of her classmates in 2014, reports surfaced that the two young suspects were under the influence of a powerful internet urban legend. The character known as Slender Man is the darling child of something called creepypasta, which is essentially a collection of original scary stories that have accumulated over time, shared on message boards like Reddit, 4chan, and Tumblr. The lore expanded out by those who interact with the legends, spawning fan fiction, doctored photographs, videos, and games, all within the universe where the stories are completely true. That's a big part of the phenomenon of creepypasta. You interact with the stories while suspending your disbelief. You make a choice to believe. Slender Man has long arms and legs, a white featureless face. He's a too tall figure wearing a suit, lurking always in the background, waiting to abduct children. Both girls responsible for the attempted murder later stated that they had believed that they needed to become something called proxies to Slender Man, and that this act, this killing of their friend, would give them access to Slender Man's mansion inside a Wisconsin national forest, and would gain them good favor with him, who they believed could kill their entire family in 3 seconds. This incident sparked a brief moral panic about the character of the Slender Man, about creepypasta, about the internet's effect on young people, and what it could make them do.
But the creature is not just scary. It's her message that has child psychologists concerned.
It's spiraling faster than they can control.
We want to warn our viewers they may find the image we're about to show to be disturbing. Police officials say it advises kids to inflict self-harm or she'll put a curse on them.
The Momo Challenge is the latest example of viral meme that is allegedly attached to a teenage suicide game on the popular messaging app WhatsApp. Momo, in case you haven't seen a picture of this creature, is definitely scary, with wide, manic, bugged-out eyes and an unnaturally wide V-shaped smile, stringy brown hair, her breasts attached directly to big chicken legs. Yeah, it's awful. Both Slender Man and Momo are perfect examples of the uncanny valley effect that we talked about in our episode about phantom clowns last season. That repulsion, that creeped out feeling you get when you see something resembling a human that's not quite human, like a doll, wax statue, or animatron. I first started writing about this Momo panic back in July of 2018, when the picture of Momo began spreading on the English-speaking web, starting with a Reddit post titled Momo that reached the front page. The image of Momo was quickly found to be an art piece created by a Japanese artist and then posted on his Instagram, but that did nothing to stop the legend from growing. The story, which has recently surged into even greater popularity, claims that someone or something is creating objectives for those they target by accessing their personal information. The game eventually leads to a dramatic ending with encouragements of self-harm and, finally, suicide. The evidence for this alleged game popped up last year when police in Buenos Aires looked into a possible connection to a WhatsApp user and the suicide of a young girl, confirmed by the Buenos Aires Times. In late July, a 12-year-old girl outside the city did commit suicide and filmed the events leading right up to her death. She was allegedly texting a person called Momo who had the profile picture I just mentioned. They believe the perpetrator's intention was to upload the video to social media as part of a challenge aimed at crediting the Momo game for the girl's suicide. And then the deaths of 2 young men in India were also reported by local media to be tied to the Momo game challenge in August of 2018. And the same goes for the suicide of a 16-year-old boy in Colombia, but nothing substantial came from any of these rumors. But in late February of this year, the rumor started again. A Twitter user posted the message, "Warning, please read, this is real. There's a thing called Momo that's instructing kids to kill themselves." She attached a screenshot of a Facebook post that reads, "Inform everyone you can," in all caps, and it was shared 22,000 times. And then Kim Kardashian West really set this thing on fire when she posted on Instagram to her 129 million followers. Here's my best Kim Kardashian. Parents, please be aware and very cautious of what your child watches on YouTube and kids' YouTube. There's a thing called Momo that's instructing kids to kill themselves, turn stoves on while everyone is asleep, and even threatening to kill the children if they tell their parents. Please help. Soon the Daily Mail's headline read, quote, 7-year-old boy tells his school friends doll-like creature would kill them in their sleep. And the Sun's read, Momo suicide game warning after schoolboy, 7, told pals the creepy character would kill them in their beds. Then the local news all over began sounding the Momo alarm. Likely mixing with the Elsagate scandal, the current real issue of bizarre, unnerving, and sometimes even violent and sexually suggestive content being snuck into kids' YouTube videos, the Momo challenge was reported to be hidden among kids' videos of Peppa Pig and Fortnite. Though no harm to any children or teenagers has been confirmed by any law enforcement agency, and YouTube found no such nefarious Momo videos encouraging suicide, educators all over the world have spoken with children about the dangers of the Momo challenge. The reports of this game are incredibly similar to those that circulated in 2016, first in Russia and then in the United States, about something called the Blue Whale game.
Today we're going to be talking about the Blue Whale Challenge, also referred to as a silent house, a sea of whales.
The name comes from whales who beached themselves and died.
Unlike other social media challenges, this challenge is a sinister one.
The challenge is established through social media. A curator directs the teen to carry out 50 tasks over 50 days. They get worse as the challenge continues.
News stories purported that 130 suicides in Russia had been linked to the game, though there's no proof whatsoever of these claims, which continue to be repeated to this day. The Momo panic has become far more viral than the Blue Whale game ever did, and the reason, I think, is this one is accompanied by an uncanny villain, a new boogeyman to encounter in our nightmares, an entity to blame. If you've been listening to American Hysteria for a while, you know that there's always been strange new teen trends to point the finger at when it comes to the state of teenage mental health. The Momo and Blue Whale challenges are just online versions of the Dungeons & Dragons moral panic that we talked about in our Satanic Panic series, as D&D and its hypnotic satanic power was believed to be the cause of several suicides in the 1980s, including one of a young closeted boy rejected by his fundamentalist family.
Timothy Grice, 21, a shotgun suicide. The detective report noted D&D became a reality. Irving Bink Pulling, 16, an avid D&D player, a suicide. Daniel and Stephen Irwin, 16 and 12, a murder and a suicide. The police said they were obsessed with the game. James Allen Kirby, 14 years old, charged with killing his junior high school principal and wounding 3 other people. Police are blaming D&D.
That strange new role-playing game, the first of its kind, became an easy thing to blame for a deeply painful, deeply complicated, and all too common tragedy that was and is still so misunderstood. As we have also covered, marijuana was once said to cause teenage suicide in the 1930s, as was rock music and heavy metal, with its apparent backwards commands to teens to kill themselves. Suicide is still the second leading cause of death among adolescents, but as mental health becomes less and less taboo, as we start to treat it seriously and with care, we can stop blaming things like the Momo Challenge and D&D. 9 out of 10 teenagers show clear warning signs before attempting suicide, and 90% of those that do were suffering with an untreated mental illness. Outside of self-harm, we can look to the Slender Man stabbing, that attempted murder, and the sentences of the 2 preteens responsible, both of whom will be under psychiatric supervision for most of the rest of their lives, both diagnosed with serious mental illnesses that were unaddressed at the time of the violence. Nonetheless, much attention was focused on Slender Man and his influence, going as far as calling the incident, you guessed it, a satanic ritual, just like they once said of Dungeons & Dragons. As in the case of creepypasta, where readers consciously suspend their disbelief for entertainment value, we certainly suspend ours unconsciously in the real world when it comes to believing in the sensational over the real.
What can parents do? I mean, how are they supposed to know if their children are involved in something like this? It can be kind of hard. Are there any signs?
So look for signs of, distress in your child, dropping grades, loss of appetite, seemingly withdrawn or agitated, especially after being on their smartphone.
Rather than figure out ways to better talk to young people about their mental health, to better accept their problems and face the fact that their issues are real and legitimate, we prefer to spread B-horror movie plots and blame internet strangers who can apparently control their every action with just a simple, mysterious text. Don't they deserve more credit than that? But that's what moral panics do. They give us something unreal to fight against so that we don't have to face the difficult work of figuring out real solutions to our complicated national problems. And if you're still nervous about the humanoid bird known as Momo, the artist who created the sculpture feels a responsibility, a solemnity about what his creation became. He told reporters, quote, "It doesn't exist anymore. It was never meant to last. It was rotten and I threw it away. The children can be reassured Momo is dead. She doesn't exist and the curse is gone." That is, until the next one comes.
More after this. And now, back to the show. To play us out on this episode of Context Clues, we are going to visit the Jackassian universe that so many of us were raised in as tweens and teens, and the one that so many others watched with disgust and dismay as Gen X and millennials created a new brand of absurdist and dangerous content. But of course, this kind of content stretched back years before the polished MTV smash hit that was Jackass, back to the nihilistic skateboarding culture that produced shocking and offensive magazines and videos. There is concern that Skibidi Toilet is causing the brains of kids and tweens to melt out of their ears with its stupidity, and that the scenes of horror and violence could have a dire effect on their growing personalities. But really, isn't this the same refrain that we've heard generation after generation after generation? It was certainly hurled at us for the dumbass and sometimes vile stuff that we consumed on sites that we'll cover in next week's episode, Newgrounds, Albino Black Sheep, and E-Bomb's World. Not to mention the shock site Rotten.com, which we made an episode about in 2022 that I would also recommend checking out for even more context. But for now, let's take a stroll down that subversive memory lane and learn a little something about the sick, strange, and stupid humor of Gen X and millennials, a legacy to remember when faced with these rageful, skibidi critics. Please enjoy these excerpts from our 2022 episode called Jackass. In 1992, after Steve Rocco had started a new, edgier skate company called World Industries, he tried to run an ad in the two major skateboard magazines, Transworld and Thrasher, and both denied the image because it showed a boy with a gun to his head. Feeling that indignant itch of censorship and feeling a timeless fuck you coming on, Rocco decided then and there to create his own deranged skate magazine that had no limits
whatsoever. Very quickly, the content of the magazine became less about skating itself and more about the outrageous and offensive antics of those who created it. Writers Earl Parker, Dave Carney, editorial director Jeff Tremaine, and photographers Rick Cossack and future famous director Spike Jonze. It would also include their friends, like future Jackass star and young skater Chris Pontius, who would become known as Party Boy, a man who dances on unsuspecting strangers while wearing just a thong and bow tie. Rocco would also hire another friend named Jason Weeman Acuna to manage subscriptions. Jason had been a sponsored skateboarder since he was 14, growing up with achondroplasia, a form of dwarfism. By issue 5, he, along with another little person, made the cover, with Jason grinding an orange curb dressed as an Oompa Loompa above the words "We Men," sparking his eternal nickname. Big Brother also designed other covers that were far more provocative, ones featuring a close-up of breasts, or a skater crucified and bleeding, or a skater dressed as the devil kick-flipping over a stack of burning Bibles. Alongside images of tricks, they ran stories about the Bong Olympics, about how to make a fake ID. They ran product reviews for penis pumps, complete with photos, and stories about looking for drugs with unhomed people. What was called the Kids issue featured a boy on the cover jumping over the camera on his board, with Big Brother written in block letters along the top, and then the words Kids issue in the bottom right in colorful bubble letters. But inside, there were articles about BDSM, bestiality, how to take drugs, and even how to commit suicide. And a kid is taught how to snort pixie sticks. In retrospect, the moral panic that Big Brother inspired does feel somewhat justified.
Well, here's something your children may be reading that you should definitely know about. It's a shocking magazine. It tells you how to commit suicide. It tells you all about drug use, and also explicit descriptions of sex.
May seem hard to believe, but this magazine is really aimed at kids.
We did talk to the art director of Big Brother magazine.
Basically, it's just all in the name of humor. That's what we're doing, and I think it's very obvious.
There is some very sexually explicit stuff in there.
Yeah, there is.
Pornographic. I mean, I think you'd have to label it that way.
But do you think this negative press made them pause and take stock of what they were doing? Of course not. It just pushed these punks even further into their asshole abyss. And in 1996, they put out their first skate video, complete with footage ripped from the news stories about them, titled simply Shit.
And we're off on the great East Coast tour. So come along and enjoy.
Oh, Jesus!
I got his pants! Let's take him off!
Get over there, you fucker!
This is ground.
They started to focus on traveling to different cities to hang out at competitions and famous skate spots, partying with the locals, and filming and writing about the wildest scenes they could find. A young clown college graduate with the Barnum and Bailey's Circus, who was also a huge fan of Big Brother, heard they were coming through his town of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And since he lacked any noteworthy skating skills, he set out to present himself as comic relief, a guy with an unhinged, unpredictable personality, ready to take on the most brutal of dares. Stephen Glover, now known widely as Steve-O, tracked them down one warm evening and told them, in all his obsessive hyper energy, that he had a trick they had to see. He then covered his brown curls in a shit ton of hairspray and asked skater Chris Markovich to blow a fireball off the top of his head. With a mouthful of rubbing alcohol, Chris lit a lighter and spit the liquid at Steve-O, accidentally hitting him squarely in the face, after which the flames engulfed his entire head, hand, and arm. Regardless of this horrific misstep, Steve-O still did a backflip, while the flames literally started to melt his skin, before pulling off his shirt and smothering the fire out. Later, at the ER, he discovered that he had burned the skin off half of his face. But he got his wish. The story and photos would appear in the next issue of Big Brother magazine under the title Burning Boy Festival.
Steve burned his face so bad he ended up looking like Freddy Krueger. It was horrible.
That's the first time that the skate community knew about Steve-O.
He would also get a little montage in another of their videos called simply Boob, in which he jumps off a bridge and chugs bong water, among other funny little flips and fireballs. On another tour through Philadelphia, the Big Brother crew met a talented 13-year-old skater from Westchester. The kid's name was Brandon Bam Margera, and along with his own big brother Jess, the late Ryan Dunn, and Brandon DiCamilio, they started making videos showcasing their own reckless groups, the skate tricks and brutal falls, laced with campy skits and footage of malevolent pranks like throwing dummies from low overpasses onto the hoods of passing cars, and running down the aisles of grocery stores with their chaotic arms flailing into the shelves, spilling products all over the floors. Inspired by Steve-O's Big Brother footage, Bam also incorporated dangerously dim-witted stunts like shopping cart jousting and jumping off a high bridge with a beach umbrella. They called the compilation CKY, which stood for Camp Kill Yourself. And the skate company Land Speed Wheels would put it out on VHS, and thousands of copies would land in the hands of kids like me. The antics of CKY impressed actor PJ Clapp, who had recently joined the Big Brother crew as a writer. Going by the far cooler moniker Johnny Knoxville, he pitched his first stunt to the magazine, and editor Jeff Tremaine told him to film it. Knoxville's plan was to test out pepper spray, a taser, and a stun gun. The climax of this footage is what would skyrocket him to viral VHS fame as he slipped on the cheapest bulletproof vest that money could buy, ready to be shot with a .38 revolver. His friends, expressing rare concern, refused to shoot him, so he had to do it himself at point-blank range. The photos would run in Big Brother, and it would become the most memorable part of the second Big Brother video, charmingly called Number 2.
Well, I'm Johnny Knoxville, United States of America, and I'll be doing a little article on self-defense equipment.
Charge! Oh! 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 Help! No, quit! No, James.
As Big Brother and CKY melded together, Jeff Tremaine would say, quote, "We had an exceptional arsenal of shitbags." And together, these agents of chaos, with their cackling death wishes, would turn out to be exactly what the suburban American youth counterculture was foaming for. Tremaine saw Johnny Knoxville as the potential frontman of a new show he was cooking up in his mind. With his ringmaster persona, his acting background, his skill at speaking directly to the camera, and the fact that he was just generally super hot. Along with director Spike Jonze, they cut together the best of Big Brother and CKY and pitched a true tangle of madness to the execs at HBO. The notoriously highbrow network was like, ew, what the fuck? No, absolutely not. So the crew took it to their second choice, the classically classless MTV, where programs like The Tom Green Show and Beavis and Butthead had already paved the way for just the kind of mindless malarkey they promised to bring to the table. MTV greenlit the project, and Johnny Knoxville, Steve-O, Bam Margera, Jason Wee Man Acuna, Chris Pontius, Ryan Dunn, Brandon DiCamillo, along with Preston Lacey, David England, and Danger Aaron, agreed to be paid a measly $200 per prank and $500 per dangerous stunt, and they were all more than happy to do it.
That's going to do it for this installment of Context Clues. I definitely encourage you to check out the full episodes of Elsagate, Jackass, and Rotten.com if you want to really have the fullest and richest possible experience next week when we cover the viral phenomenon of Skibidi Toilet. And remember, you can head over to our Instagram at American Hysteria Podcast to watch a little bit of the madness for yourself. That actually might be the very best way to get some real context. As always, I'm looking forward to getting weird with you next week. This was American Hysteria. If you want to support our show and help us continue to be able to make it, you can head to patreon.com/American Hysteria or subscribe on Apple Plus. You'll get ad-free episodes as well as bonus content, like my other podcast, Hysteria Home Companion, that I do with our producer Miranda, where we tell you stories that were cut from the episodes or stories that we know that you'll love. So head to patreon.com/American Hysteria or subscribe on Apple Plus. It really helps us out. Another great way to help us out is to leave us a 5-star review on the app of your choosing, or to go to AmericanHysteria.com and pick up some of our merch and leave us a message on the Urban Legends hotline about a tale that you remember from growing up, or even one that you've heard recently, and we might do an entire exhaustive investigation about it. That's AmericanHysteria.com. American Hysteria's producer is Miranda Zickler, and our associate producer and sound designer is Riley Swedelius Smith. And I'm your host, Chelsey Weber Smith. Thanks, as always, for listening, and I hope you have a great